Let's forget about what money is for a second. Instead, we're going to ask a much, much bigger question. What is value? And for thousands of years, how has humanity tried to measure it? To separate what's precious from what's completely worthless. Well, to find the answer, we have to go way back. And our story, believe it or not, begins in a surprisingly simple place, a dusty patch of earth that would define value for millennia to come.
So yeah, this is where it all begins. Long before there were stock markets or crypto wallets, our entire concept of economic value was born right here. This was the original laboratory of worth, the first place we really had to figure it all out.
So what even was a threshing floor? Well, it was actually a simple but brilliant piece of technology. See, farmers would break the grain from the stalks, but then came the magic moment, winnowing. They'd toss it all up into the air, and a force of nature, the wind, would do all the hard work. It would just blow away the light, useless chaff, while the heavy, valuable grain fell straight back down to the ground. This was it, the first, most fundamental act of separating value from waste. But these places were so much more than just agricultural work sites. The threshing floor was the absolute heart of the community. This is where you paid your taxes, in grain, of course, where you settled your debts, where you made legal agreements. It became so central to life that it even evolved into a powerful metaphor for divine judgment, the ultimate separation of good from evil. It was the physical and spiritual center where our very first standards of value were forged. A society can't run on grain alone, though. As communities got bigger and more complex, they ran into a brand new challenge. How in the world do you trade everything else? And this is where humanity hit its first major economic roadblock. The first solution seemed pretty obvious. Barter. I have wheats, you have shoes, let's just trade. Simple, right? Oh, so wrong. The whole system just crashes into a wall, and that wall is called the double coincidence of wants. See, for a trade to work, I don't just have to want your shoes, you also have to want my wheat, right here, right now. Just imagine trying to trade an axe for some help hunting a mammoth. You'd have to find a mammoth hunter who just so happens to need a new axe. It's incredibly inefficient. It's mess. So society started using these things called commodity monies, stuff that pretty much everyone agreed was valuable. But here's the thing, every single one had a fatal flaw. Cattle? Sure, they were a sign of wealth, but you can't exactly make change from half a cow. Grain was universal, but it's heavy and it rots. Even something like cowrie shells, well, they were portable, but their value could totally tank if you lived near the right beach. Every solution just created a brand new problem. And this gets us to the real heart of the problem. This idea of incommensurability. It's like trying to compare apples and oranges, but for an entire economy. Without a single common ruler to measure everything against, how can you possibly say what anything is truly worth in relation to everything else? Humanity needed a new kind of threshing floor, a universal one. And so, the search was on. The goal was to find a single substance that could act as a universal measure of value, a new threshing floor that could work for every good and service you could possibly imagine. So what in the world could possibly fit the bill? The answer, amazingly, wasn't some new invention, but something that was hidden in the very fabric of the universe all along, the periodic table of elements. The logic here is basically a giant process of elimination. First, you just get rid of huge chunks of the table. It can't be a gas. Good luck paying for bread with a balloon full of argon. It can't be radioactive. You definitely don't want your wallet poisoning you. Then it can't be too common, because if it's everywhere, it won't hold value. But it also can't be so rare that nobody can ever find it. And after you go through that whole rigorous process, you're left with just 5 elements. 5 out of the entire periodic table. Just these 5 precious metals meet all the basic criteria for a stable, useful form of money. But the question remains, which one is the best? So how do we get from 5 down to 1? Well, silver was a really strong contender, but it tarnishes, it corrodes. Gold, on the other hand, it's a noble metal. It doesn't rust, it doesn't tarnish, it just endures. Now, what about platinum? It's even more stable, but its melting point is ridiculously high. Ancient civilizations just didn't have the technology to work with it. And that left gold, right in the sweet spot. Chemically stable, beautiful, and workable with the tools they had. But its value goes so much deeper than just chemistry. Across almost every culture, gold's properties resonated with something profound. Its sheer weightiness, that satisfying heft in your hand, was linked to concepts like glory. Its untarnishing radiance was seen as a reflection of the divine.
and its unique sunlight color just made it an object of universal beauty. It wasn't just useful, it was meaningful.
So, for thousands of years, value was tied to a physical substance: grain, salt, gold, something you could touch. But the next leap in our story is maybe the most radical of all: the move away from substance and into the realm of pure trust. This is the great abstraction.
And this timeline just shows you how fast things started to change. We start with the very first coins around 600 BC. Then, for over 1,000 years, value is basically tied to metal. Then a huge jump. Paper money shows up in China, a promise of value. But the real break from reality happens in 1971, when the US dollar is completely untethered from gold. And then in 2009, something entirely new emerges from the digital world.
This leads us right to the system we all live in today: fiat money. The word fiat comes from Latin, meaning let it be done. It's money that has value simply because a government declares that it does. Its worth isn't in the paper it's printed on, it's in our collective trust and faith in the institution that issues it. That's it.
Now, this was not an easy transition. You can imagine how strange this must have felt at first. When the earliest forms of paper money started appearing without a direct link to a physical commodity, ancient Chinese observers had this beautifully poetic name for it. They called it wind or ghost money, and that just perfectly captures the weird, intangible nature of this new kind of value. It felt as substanceless as the wind. And that brings us right up to the present day. We are now standing on a completely new kind of threshing floor, a digital one. And a new test of worth is well underway. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. That was a profound shock to the system. For a lot of people, it was a moment where trust in the central authorities that manage all our money was just deeply, deeply shaken. And out of that crisis of faith, a radical new idea was born: a currency without a government, without a central bank, a decentralized system built on cryptographic proof instead of trust in institutions. And this really is the fundamental difference. The fiat system we're all used to is centralized. It's top-down. Its value comes from our trust in a single authority. The crypto system is the opposite. It's decentralized. It's bottom-up. Its value comes from a network of users and the mathematical certainty of its code. These are two completely different philosophies of what gives something worth. So, after this incredible journey from ancient fields all the way to the bleeding edge of technology, we find ourselves, funnily enough, right back where we started, asking the same fundamental question. I mean, it's kind of wild, right? The tools we use for the separation have evolved beyond imagination. We've gone from using the wind and a wooden fork to using cryptography and global computer networks. And yet the core act is identical. We are still on a threshing floor, just trying to figure out what is the wheat and what is the chaff. And that brings us to the final question. After thousands of years of innovation, from grain to gold to government promises to pure code, have we actually found a better answer? What is true, enduring value? And maybe more importantly, in this new digital era, who or what gets to decide?